Hey guys, hope you're having a nice day, and this video is going to be my guide to stutter stepping. So like if you are new to the gaming scene, or if you are new to Heroes of the Storm or to MOBA games or something like that, and you keep hearing the term stutter stepping and you have no idea what it is, or if you just want to know more about why you should be stutter stepping, like what are the benefits, the downsides of it, how to better learn to do it, things like that, I hope that this video will help you with that. So I guess let's just go right to it, right? So first of all, I guess a TLDR version would be stutter stepping is basically doing this right here. We attack, move, attack, move, attack, move. Pretty simple, right? So what this allows you to do is to have constant damage output while constantly repositioning yourself. So you won't lose your efficiency in the battle, but at the same time you would be able to move around, get like a favorable advantage, like a favorable positioning, or maybe try to escape from somebody, maybe dodge a skill shot or something like that. And like keep in mind that when you are doing this, the most important part is to basically look at that damage per second stat. You see how it's 157, something like that. So let me just reset that DPS counter. And let's start again. I'm gonna give it a second so that it stabilizes. And there we go. So our DPS is more or less stabilized right now, and we can see that we are doing 161 damage per second. It's slightly more than we were doing while we were stutter stepping, but that's because I kind of messed it up a little bit. And this is probably the most important part of it, is that while moving around, you still want to maintain this constant damage per second. If your values like don't match whatsoever, then you are doing it wrong, because the whole point is that you still do damage, but you are also hard to catch, hard to kill. So always make sure that you are as close as possible to just static DPS while you are stutter stepping, because that's when you know that you are doing it right. Okay, so now that we kind of know what stutter stepping is, I kind of wanted to talk about why it's called stutter stepping, because it's kind of a funny story, I guess. At least that's what I think, how it originated. It might be from some like sports term, but I don't know anything about sports, so I can't really tell you whether or not that's true. But basically, like the term stutter stepping originated way back when RTS games were like really popular, like the new ones. Like it was like the new RTS games were coming out, like it was a very new genre. And like back in the day, animations were actually kind of hard to do, and nobody really had computers that would render those animations like when they were playing the game. So what would end up happening is you would just have this very cheap animations, so to say, that would have maybe like 2 or maybe 3 frames in them, and that's it, without any transitions or anything like that. So like if you imagine that, like for example right now we can see Rainer having a smooth transition to his auto attacks, and he smoothly transitions out into his walking animation, so it looks very nice and smooth. But back in the day you just had a sprite that was attacking, and then a sprite that was moving, and then a sprite that was idle. So when you do something like this back in the day, like the screen would just, like the game would kind of look ridiculous, because it would just be a lot of marines like this, either standing still and then they immediately attack and then they immediately stand still again. So it would look really stuttery. It would look like the game was lagging, and that's kind of where the term stutter stepping came from. At least I choose to believe that, because that's a cool story. So, what are the benefits of stutter stepping? I mean, as I mentioned before, you keep the constant damage output while moving around. This means that you dodge skill shots, you are also hard to kill, hard to catch, but not only that, because you are constantly moving around, you can always position yourself where you want to be, rather than where you are forced to be or something like that. Like, for example, when chasing somebody, when somebody is running away from you, you can constantly keep attacking them while moving towards them, which means that you would have higher chances of killing them. Whereas if, let's say, for example, right here, if I start attacking them right here, and if they just start running from here, and I will just keep right-clicking them, there's absolutely no way I would catch up to them. Like, this would be the last attack I make, and then I would just keep chasing them, and they would just keep running away. Because every hero has like the same movement speed for the most part, so there would be absolutely no way for me to chase the kill. Whereas if I do something like this, I'm able to land maybe 2 or 3 extra attacks while chasing somebody when they would be right there. And that allows you to actually secure the kill. So that's probably one of the better examples of why you should stutter step. Also, on top of the previously listed benefits, you get another one which does not directly affect your I guess viability in the game, your effectiveness, but what basically happens is because you are constantly clicking around and you are constantly moving your hands, this allows you to react faster, like because you are basically constantly warming up, right? And that means that when you see a sudden skill shot coming towards you, you can react much faster, rather than when you are sitting in this idle pose and then the skill shot comes and then you're kind of like panicking and like, oh no, I need to move, right? That would be a much slower reaction time rather than if you're constantly moving and keep track of it, you know? Okay, so let's talk about the downsides of stutter stepping. Well, first of all, if you are not like executing it properly and whatnot, you might actually move into skill shots instead of out of skill shots, because since you are trying your best to just move while attacking, you might forget that there should be a reason why you move. Like there should always be a good reason for you to move around. You are either repositioning yourself into a favorable position, or you escape skill shots, or you chase somebody. But if you just move for the sake of moving, very often you would find yourself like walking into roots, catching arcane orbs or sand blasts, and that's not gonna be great for you. So just make sure to keep track of it. Make sure to always keep track of where you're moving, not only just moving for the sake of moving itself. So the other downside of stutter stepping is if you are just learning it and you don't really have any practice doing it, is that by trying to execute it, it will take a lot of concentration from you and a lot of effort, which means that other aspects of your gameplay, of your skill would suffer. So it kind of might seem like it's not worth doing, but at the same time it is, because like the moment you learn it, it's actually not really that hard to do, but you still need to like cross that bridge of the learning experience, and it might seem like it's not worth it, but it is. Just trust me, it is. It's such a good skill to have in this game, especially in this game. Okay, so the other downside for stutter stepping is if you are too impatient, or if you don't really know your timings precisely, you might do something like this. Actually, on Raynor, it's actually really hard to do. That's probably why Raynor is one of the best. Okay, it's actually really hard to execute it on Raynor, but you can see that sometimes I'm issuing an attack command, but Raynor just doesn't shoot. That's because I don't allow him enough time to shoot, and instead I just move. So that means that if you are too impatient with your stutter step and you don't let the hero execute his attack animation, you will actually miss attacks. Like they will never land, and so at that point you might as well not be present in a fight if you are not attacking, right? So that's one of the bad aspects of stutter stepping. Or the other problem that you might have is if you move too much, so you'll focus yourself on trying to stay safe rather than trying to attack enemies. So what will end up happening is something like this, and then you run, and then you attack, and then you run, and look at how much your DPS actually suffers from this. You never want to be doing something like this. Always try to attack, unless you are under a direct threat of dying, in which case, like if you are dead, you have zero impact on the game, so then obviously save yourself. But if you just take you can take a couple of skill shots on any hero. It doesn't really matter that much. As long as you stay above 0 health, that's all you need. And obviously you want to have as much impact in teamfights as possible, and in order to do that you want to have as much damage output as possible. Okay, so those were just kind of like generic pluses and minuses to why you should be starter stepping, or maybe why you shouldn't be, and like why you should learn it, that kind of apply to everyone, to every single hero in the game. I will talk more specifically in just a second, but like first let me, I guess, answer the question of whether or not it's worth to learn starter stepping, and the answer is yes. And especially in Heroes of the Storm. I mentioned this earlier, but let me just elaborate on that for just a second. Because Heroes of the Storm does not have any mechanics like last hitting or any other very heavily skill dependent mechanics like that, where you can increase your personal impact too much based on like based on the mechanics presented to you by the game, right? Starter stepping is almost the only mechanic that will differentiate a good player from a bad one. And the other reason why you kind of why you would want to invest time in learning this is because after you actually do it, you don't really need to. And yeah, if you have like a question like whether or not you should actually learn how to starter step, the answer is yes. It actually requires almost no upkeep after you learn it. What I mean by that is that you don't actually need to practice it after you are done learning this skill, because I mean you will just be able to execute it like right away. It's kind of like riding a bicycle, you know. Obviously you won't be executing it perfectly because you actually don't practice it, and people who practice it would be slightly better than you are. It will only be like a slight benefit, which is, in my opinion, not really worth your time unless you are planning to be a pro player or something like that. Okay, so let's actually talk about specific heroes and how kind of you want to starter step as them. Like for example, why am I playing Raynor in this video? Well, that's because he's probably the easiest hero to learn starter stepping as, because I mean you probably saw it, like the fact that it was actually really hard for me to miss my attacks, so to say, like to miss my attack timings, because Raynor has a very fast attack animation speed. Like the moment you press attack, he almost instantly attacks, and the moment Raynor attacks, the hit lands. So not only you get the audio cue of Raynor shooting his assault rifle, you also get the visual cue of the damage number showing up. So if you are just learning, then this, like both of those cues are really nice for you. Whereas if you are playing a projectile based hero, like let's say Cassia or Bala, heroes like that, there will be like a projectile flying, so you would hear the audio cue for the attack animation completing, but you won't actually see the damage indicator because the hit won't yet land, which makes Raynor a much easier hero to start off as, at least in my opinion. And yeah, when practicing it, as much as you want to be moving around as much as possible, right? It's always better to move less and attack more. It's okay if you like stand for a second instead of like moving all the time. Like it's okay to do this. It's not okay to do this. Like this is a bad idea. This is decent. Like as long as you keep up your attacks going, maybe even shoot twice, maybe even like have a rule of shooting twice and then moving. That can also help you out a lot. That actually can be a really good starting point, right? Something like this is much better than doing this. I just can't stress this enough. You don't want to be losing DPS, because if you are doing that, then you aren't doing your job like in a team, and your whole team will suffer from it. So make sure that you are attacking. So, as much as every single hero benefits from starter stepping in more or less an equal way, there are some heroes that are made to starter step. One of them is Cassia. So, the reason why I bring up Cassia is because of her trait. Her trait allows her to have 65 armor, 65 physical armor while she is moving around. And considering how fast Cassia's attacks are and how like fast you can execute it and everything, you can keep that bonus up constantly for the full duration of the fight. As long as you don't get rooted or stunned, there's absolutely no way that your trait would ever fade if you execute your auto attacks, your starter stepping properly. So this is one of the heroes that is basically made to stutter step. Like, you get so much defense. And if you don't know what armor is in Heroes of the Storm, is every point of armor equals 1% of damage reduction. So 65 physical armor means that you take 65% less damage from basic attacks, and it makes Cassia almost unkillable in certain scenarios. So as long as you are moving around, Cassia is just such a perfect hero to stutter step as, and it really pains me when people don't do it. So please, if you are playing Cassia, make sure that you know how to stutter step. In fact, just make it like your goal. Like, if you want to be playing Cassia but you don't know how to stutter step, in every single match try to practice it. You will see the benefits almost right away. I promise you. It's just so good and so important. So yeah, Cassia is one of the heroes that benefits from stutter stepping in a very defensive way. 65 physical armor makes Cassia really hard to kill. Okay, so the other hero that is mechanically built to stutter step would be Bala. One of the perfect examples of why you should be stutter stepping as an auto attack based damage dealer. Because of Vala's trait. With every single attack Vala lands, she gets more damage and she gets extra movement speed. And because Vala's attacks are really fast, but she still gets that extra movement speed buff. So this means that even though she needs to attack a little bit more often than other heroes, because of that extra movement speed buff, she can cover the same distance as other heroes while stutter stepping, whilst attacking a little bit more often than them, which makes her a very interesting and rewarding hero to play if you are nailing everything. And by the way, I'm making a lot of mistakes. Like right now, I'm missing attacks, and it's kind of on purpose, and maybe not so much sometimes, but you always want to strive for kind of a perfect execution, because it makes a huge difference. Like, you might seem that it's only 140 damage, but like, that's a lot of damage. Like, if you miss one attack like that, that's the difference between a Rhaegar saving somebody with an ancestral healing and you actually killing them. And obviously that can make or break the fight for you. So you want to be nailing everything as much as possible. So I guess one of the other tricks I should kind of mention, maybe this is not a trick, but if you keep track of my cursor, right, you can see that sometimes it shows up as green and sometimes it shows up as red. That's because when it shows up as green, I issue a move command. When it shows up as red, I issue an attack move command. And this is probably one of the more important things about stutter stepping. You always want to be using attack move commands rather than right clicking, because when you right click like this, like you click here, click there, yes, you can execute it, but sometimes you will misclick it. Like inevitably you will misclick, which means that instead of attacking your target, you would actually move into them. And you probably don't want to be moving into, let's say, an artist, right? So instead, using an attack move command, make sure that if there is an enemy in your path, you will attack them. There is even an option in the menu that would allow you to kind of compensate for the fact that you can misclick. It's actually, let me show it to you. Basically, there we go. Attack move, target point. So what this does for you is that when you issue an attack move command right here, Bala would try to attack the closest target to the target point, which in this case is this target dummy. Without this option enabled, if I issue, just let me show you. Without this option enabled, if I, like, we have two targets right here. If I issue an attack command here and I don't have an option enabled, Bala would try to attack the closest target, which would be this giant, right? But because I have the option enabled, she would always prioritize the target that's closest to the cursor rather than to her. So those are the things that can help you improve with your stutter stepping, I guess. Okay, so far I've been showing you guys only ranged heroes, specifically ranged auto attackers, and obviously they are like the best heroes to stutter step as, but melee heroes are just as important, and Arthas is probably one of the better examples of how stutter stepping is important on a melee hero. So for example, right now I'm going to try and kill Kerrigan Well, she's a bot shot, she's stupid. Okay, you know what? Never mind. Let me give it another shot. Let's actually clear this wave so that our lane pushes in it, so that Kerrigan does not die to towers like that. There we go. So this should help out a lot. Okay, basically, look at this. So this is me trying to kill her while just auto-attacking her like this. She will try to run away, I will try to catch up to her. And because I'm Arthas, I'm actually able to do this because she was actually slowed down hard enough. She almost escaped to her gates, right? I could have used other skill shots, but I kind of want to show you the raw value of actually stutter stepping as Arthas. And now, basically, let me try and show you how you kill her while stutter stepping and why it's so damn important. So first of all, as a tank, you always want to be cutting off your opponents and body blocking them like this. So, and look at this, look at how much easier it was to kill her, and how much lesser like her chances of surviving and her paths that she was able to take were. There was absolutely no way that she was able to escape there. And that's basically right there the benefits of stutter stepping on a tank. You can body block easier, you can set up better engages like that, and obviously constant repositioning like this allows you to sometimes avoid skill shots and whatnot, and that's very, very important. Okay, so the other hero that stutter stepping would be really, really important for is probably Illidan, another melee hero. It's because the difference in like what's happening when you are stutter stepping and not doing it is actually kind of incredible. Like, look at this, I'm able to keep up to her even without using my skill shots and whatnot. And that allows me to catch up to her much, much easier. And also get the cooldown reduction, the damage output, and the healing for Illidan without too many efforts, to be honest. So yeah, whenever playing Illidan, always try to move around a little bit. And of course, what would be the point of a stutter stepping guide without the mentioning of Tracer? Because Tracer is basically the perfect example of why stutter stepping is a thing and why you should always strive to do it. Because she doesn't need to do it. She can attack and move at the same time, which means that she can constantly keep harassing your target, keep constant DPS going off, even while she is constantly moving around and repositioning herself. And even though she is one of the squishiest heroes in the game, she is at the same time one of the hardest to kill heroes. And not hardest, but sometimes it's really, really hard to catch Tracer, if not impossible. Unless you have a certain team comp, there is just sometimes absolutely no way that you can catch up to Tracer. And she can and will absolutely destroy your team because of that. So I think this is like the perfect example of why stutter stepping is a thing and why you should do it. Tracer. A broken hero. Oh, come on, that should have been a kill. Okay, so there are heroes that benefit from stutter stepping a lot, but there are also heroes that suffer from stutter stepping a lot, and the two of them, kind of like the two of the auto-attackers, of the ranged assassins that really, really suffer from you stutter stepping them, would probably be Zul'jin and Tychus. And as Zul'jin, you can't really do much about it. Like, basically, the way Zul'jin works is the lower health he has, the faster his attack speed becomes, up until the point where he attacks fast enough to the point where if you move even slightly, you will miss out on some DPS. So, like, at that point, you just want to be standing as a turret and just attacking constantly. But Tychus is a little bit different than that. First of all, Zul'jin needs to drop to low health in order to become a turret, right? Whereas Tychus, just right away. Like, if I move right now, if I move even slight, like, no matter how fast I move around, I will lose DPS, right? So as Tychus, you will always want to be standing still and attacking, whereas as Zul'jin, you would always only want to do that when you are at super, super low health. And Zul'jin doesn't really have any tools to deal with that, whereas Tychus does. So first of all, his dash talent, this is a very important one, because what it does for you is that after you get a certain amount of regen globes, 25 regen globes, not only your dash will become much, much longer, you also, with every single regen globe you get a movement speed every time you use your run and gun. And what that does for you is that it allows you to catch up to people without actually microing it. So I'm going to show you this like right here. There should be a button to complete. There we go. So we have completed our quest. I'm actually going to just kill Arthas here so that he respawns. And I'm just going to try and show you why dash is so important on Tychus. Okay, so let's try to drop Arthas to low health, force him to retreat. And what happens here, like look at this, we're able to catch up to him without actually losing any DPS because of our dash talent. And that's one of the ways to mitigate the weakness of Tychus, of him constantly needed to stand still in order to do proper damage. And the alternative, like a simpler alternative I guess would be is managing your cooldowns properly. Like you would only ever want to be using minigun if you feel like you will be able to stand for the full duration of it for 3 seconds. So like right now I feel like I'm confident that I will be standing still here for 3 seconds and get the full value from the minigun. And then when I need to move around, I enable overkill. Instead of attacking, I enable overkill and reposition myself. That's basically what you want to be doing as Tychus. Maybe that helps you out with playing Tychus, I don't know. It helped me, like when I decided to try out dash and to try and manage cooldowns. I felt like my Tychus gameplay just became so much more better. So I hope that it helps you guys too. And as Zul'jin you can't really do much. Your only hope is to enable Tasdingo and hope that while in the turret mode nobody kills, like nobody crowd controls you, so that you can execute as many attacks as possible onto enemies. But yeah, I felt like I had to mention heroes that are really hurt by starter stepping just by default, because they are designed in such a way. They are designed in a way where they are almost turrets, but which makes them really vulnerable to your enemies. But at the same time, if left alone, they can almost solo their entire team, because their damage can be absolutely ridiculous. So there you go. And this has been my first attempt at like a proper guide for Heroes of the Storm. And if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. You can even try to body block people like that. And then you can even die to towers like that. So that's basically Illidan right there. Perfect.